Welcome everyone to the negotiation technique. I see that we've got a few people on the line so far, so we might start. First of all, thank you very much for joining me today. Before I start, I'd really love to know where you might be in the world right now. So if we can just check that the question box is actually working, and you can type where you are right now in the question box so that I can know where you are. Okay, looks like we've got someone in Sydney. Fantastic, I'm in Sydney today. The weather's not fabulous. So most people in Sydney by the looks of it. The other question I'd love to ask you right now is, when you think about negotiating, what is actually holding you back from, whether it's negotiating for improved salary or a promotion or some type of development role? What is actually holding you back? And once again, if you can just pop your response in the question box, that would be great. Okay, so not knowing what you're worth, that's definitely a challenge for a lot of people, is really not knowing what salary should I be being paid. Okay, so then another one is lack of confidence, so not really feeling confident about what you want to be asking for and how to ask for that. Okay, so knowing when a negotiation might be over, knowing when to leave. Yep, so knowing how far to push the particular negotiation and knowing when it's okay to negotiate or not to negotiate. Okay, and yeah, not wanting to be seen as pushy or aggressive. Thanks very much for sharing that. So this afternoon, what I'd like to do is I want to share as much as I can with you on techniques around negotiation. And I just wanted to share with you up front why I developed this program. The reason it came about was because I was coaching lots of women, and I noticed that a lot of the same challenges seem to come up with women. So what I've done is I've packaged them into a program called the Achieving Women program, and this negotiation technique webinar is a part of that particular program. And I really want to share it with as many people as I possibly can. And like I said, to make it really great for you, the more we interact, the better it'll be. So what I wanted to do is cover off three things with you this afternoon. One is about being ambitious. The other one is to be able to talk about your strengths, and the other is to ask for more. During this afternoon session, I encourage you to take as many notes as you can so that you can remember what we talked about, but I will be sending you a copy of the slide pack, and which will give you an opportunity to download them and have a look at them again if you need to. So why do I do what I do? Well, I had a corporate career for about 18 years and I worked my way up the corporate ladder. And what I noticed was I got to a stage where colleagues of mine were being paid more than me. They were moving into more senior roles. I wasn't necessarily going anywhere. And I was starting to feel a bit frustrated, and I felt like I wasn't developing. And a lot of my hard work seemed to be going unnoticed. So what I realized was that I wasn't actually sharing a lot of my achievements with people. I was expecting that they would notice them. And I also hadn't really shared with the influencers and the managers in the business that I had ambitions to progress my career further than where I was at that point in time. So I changed my approach, and I started sharing very openly and honestly my ambitions for my career. And I also started talking about those things that I achieved and the value that I was adding to the organisation through doing those. And as a result of that, I did end up being able to achieve higher salaries, better promotions. So what I'd like to do now is take all of those learnings that I had from my own experiences and be able to share those with other people. So I'm just keen to understand from you at the moment is, what do you find as the hardest part about negotiating? Whether that be negotiating on salary, negotiating for a promotion, What do you find the hardest part about negotiating? Okay, not getting shut down. So actually having an opportunity to continue the conversation before them saying, "Look, let's stop this conversation here." Sticking to your plan, yep. So they might have another agenda and they might want to change the agenda from where it is. Okay, giving in, so giving into what they might offer you when it's actually lower than your expectations. Yeah, okay, so concerned about what the person that you're negotiating with might be thinking about you if you do that. Okay, great. So we're going to talk about all of those things this afternoon. So let's keep moving, and we'll start with the first part of the webinar, which is around being ambitious. So through my coaching sessions with women, I heard a lot of similar things. And when it came to being ambitious, these were some of the things that I heard. First of all, was that women tend to undervalue themselves. The other was that women feeling like, well, maybe what they're offering me is enough. I had a coaching client that I was working with, and we had worked together around her being able to be put forward for a particular promotion, and she got it, and she was so excited about it. She went into the conversation with the hiring leader about uh, the promotion, where they were going to be making an offer to her, and they offered her an increase, and she went from being really, really excited to feeling really deflated. And the offer just wasn't where she was expecting it to be based on the expectations of the role. And so I said to her, "So what did you do?" And she said, "Well, I just said to them, oh, thanks." And I was like, "Really? You just said thanks?" And, I felt, she felt really frustrated because she'd accepted what she thought. What she said to me was, "I just thought maybe it was enough, so I would just settle for it." And I think that's what we're seeing with a lot of women, is that women are paid less than what they deserve. I don't know if you've seen the Australian Bureau of Statistics stats on this, but I just wanted to do a bit of a poll with you to get your thoughts on this. Um, According to ABS, on average, how much less are women paid than men? So if you could just select one of those, 5%, 18%, 35%, and 50%, which one do you think it is? Oh, we've got a smart group of ladies on the line this afternoon. So it's actually, yeah, so 18% is the number. So the average full-time working woman earns 18% less than the average full-time working man. And look, I don't know about you, but that's something I feel like I want to do something about. So thank you for doing that. So what happens is women tend to lower their expectations around salary. They're frustrated by the lack of fairness, and they don't want to come across as being pushy and aggressive. So what I want to help you do this afternoon is really have appropriate salary expectations, to be confident to negotiate, and to be paid what you deserve. So the way I'm going to do that, I'm just going to share with you 3 key principles that I use when I'm coaching clients. The first one is around having appropriate salary expectations. So when we are going into a negotiation with someone about salary, we want to make sure that we're going in with an objective view about those salary expectations. And the World Wide Web is a wonderful thing. There's lots of information you can grab. And one of the things that I wanted to share with you today was the Hayes Salary Guide. And now I know that this is definitely relevant for people in Australia, but there may be an equivalent for overseas. The Hayes Salary Guide provides information on all different types of salaries and insights from the experts. And there's actually now an iPhone app that you can download, and you literally just tap into that iPhone app, what kind of industry, what function, what type of role it is, and you can get a determination on what the salary range should be for that particular role. So I would encourage you that if you're going into a salary negotiation, go in there with a considered view on what the salary range should be. So I guess that's one piece of knowledge that you need to know going into a negotiation so that you can be ambitious around your expectations. The other two principles I wanted to take you through are more around behavioural approaches to a negotiation. So first of all, there's this model which I call the assertiveness navigator. What we want to do in a negotiation is very much be assertive so that we get to a win-win outcome. So we win and the person we're with wins in that they feel like it's a great outcome for the organisation, but it leaves a positive impact on them, the way that we behave during that negotiation. What can happen is we can sit on the edges of the triangle. So let me talk you through each one of those. So the first one on the bottom right is around being aggressive. So if we're in a negotiation and we might be talking quite abruptly or have closed off body language or banging our hands on the table, we can come across as being quite aggressive. What happens then is, look, we might win that we've got our point of view across, but it's a lose situation because they don't come out with a very positive view of us. And where we don't want to be seen as pushy and aggressive, this could very much put us into that space. The other one is on the left-hand side around being passive. So this would be a little bit like that example that I gave before around settling for something that you think is enough. So you might go into a negotiation having an expectation and not sticking to your expectation. So I think one of the comments before was, kind of knowing when to let up. We've got to be careful that we don't let up too soon. On the top is another way that we can behave, which is around passive aggressive. So this is, going into a negotiation, accepting something less than what you think you deserve. And so you're being quite passive, but then walking out of the room and bitching to other people about the outcome of it and telling people how badly you've been treated. That's that real passive aggressive. So we're not being honest with the person who can really make the decision. Instead, we're telling other people about it. The last principle that I wanted to share with you around the behavioural approach to negotiation is this assertiveness guide. And this just gives you 6 ways that you can demonstrate assertiveness through your actions. So if we start on the top left-hand side around speaking with facts, so when you go into a negotiation, try and avoid saying things like, everyone else gets promoted, everyone else is given opportunities, I'm always missing out on things. Actually go in with facts like, this promotion was available and I wasn't considered. I thought that I would have been. What other opportunities are available? Have with you information from the Hayes Salary Guide, for example, with the facts about what the remuneration should be. The next one is to listen well. So when we're in a negotiation, we want to demonstrate that we're actively listening. And we want to do this for a couple of reasons. One is because of the perception that the other person will have of us being quite positive if we're listening to them to understand. And the other thing is that if we listen to what the other party is telling us about, then we can really understand what is in it for them. So what are they looking for? And then when we are trying to negotiate, we can leverage off what they're looking for. So being able to demonstrate that we know what they need and we can demonstrate that what we're looking for will always also satisfy their needs as well. And I'll talk to you a little bit about this a bit further on the webinar. The next one is around tone and volume. So ensuring that you maintain a constructive tone when you're having a conversation versus getting very loud and aggressive, or alternatively, talking really quietly that therefore comes across as though you're not feeling very confident about what you're saying. So we want to maintain an assertive tone. The next piece is body language. So ensuring that we maintain an open body posture. Eye contact is really important. So maintaining eye contact when you're negotiating really displays a lot of confidence to the other person that you're negotiating with, versus if you're looking away and if you're looking away from them, it might be seen as though you're not very confident in yourself. If we go over to the left-hand side of the star here to talk honestly, so in a negotiation, talk honestly about your ambitions and what you're trying to achieve out of the conversation. And then the last piece is to practice. So actually practice before you go into a negotiation, just like you would if you were practicing for a presentation, a game of sport. Practice so that you can get a better outcome from that conversation. So what I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about you. So you've seen here 3 principles that I use when I'm coaching people, and I'm keen to understand, of the principles that you have just seen, I'd love to know what you think you could use. So if you were to say, yeah, I could use one thing tomorrow from there to make me feel more confident in negotiating, I'd love you just to type your answer into the question box right now. Nice to have you on board, Bianca. So we're just using the question box to respond, and your responses are confidential. So I just see them versus them being shared with others. I will talk to the responses, but I won't mention where they came from. So having the facts seems to be quite a beneficial part. So yeah, going into a negotiation with the facts rather than hearsay or emotion, and talking open and honestly. Thank you for that. Okay, practice looks like something else that people are really liking. Okay, listening, yes, definitely. Okay, someone else is mentioning they like the concept of the difference between assertive and aggressive. Yeah, it's interesting. I've heard a number of people talk about the word assertive as them taking it as being quite aggressive, but it's not. Being assertive is much more constructive. Okay, yeah, and someone else likes the iPhone app. Yes, I was presenting last night at a women's function, and there was lots of people downloading that app during the conversation. So that's great. I'm glad you like it. So my role as a coach is to help you draw a line in the sand and determine where you want to go from here. So if you're currently experiencing things like being paid less, you've lowered your expectations, or you're feeling frustrated, you've got a choice now to really get paid what you deserve, potentially ask for a salary that actually makes good commercial sense, and feel confident to negotiate. So there's a couple of tips there that are going to help you to be more ambitious when you're negotiating. So let's talk about the second part of today's webinar, which is talk about your strengths. Once again, I'll just share with you some of the common things that came up when I've been coaching women in this space. First of all, they said to me that they weren't necessarily getting recognition for their efforts. They went on to further say that they felt that they were working tirelessly, and those particular efforts were mostly being unnoticed. So they were working long hours, potentially little reward for those long hours as well. And what they shared with me was that they quite often had these never-ending to-do lists that they were having to try and navigate their way through. And yet, interestingly, nobody was noticing that they were working long hours or noticing the fact that they were getting through these big, long to-do lists. And what seems to be happening is that when women are behaving this way, they tend to become more indispensable rather than promotable. So they're such a good asset to the team because of how much they deliver that they don't necessarily get considered for promotions. So where I want to be able to help you is to have your reward that's equal to the amount of effort that you're putting in. I'd really like to help you focus on the things that are really going to get noticed, so that when you spend time focusing on work and you have a to-do list, you're focusing on those things that are the most important. And then to be able to talk confidently about your achievements. So these are all the things that I did, and I feel confident sharing those achievements with others. And the result of all of that, if you can do that, is to be recognised and rewarded for the amount of effort that you're putting in. So once again, I'd just like to share with you 3 key principles that I have found beneficial for women when I'm coaching them in this space. I have used some learnings that I've got from Stephen Covey and Jim Collins. They're 2 great authors on being able to focus your efforts where you're going to get the best return on investment. And I have used the learnings that I've got from the things that they've taught me, and I've developed this framework called the Impact Maximizer. Now, the reason I'm sharing this with you, you might be thinking, wait a minute, how does this relate to being able to talk about my strengths? Well, how it relates is that if you're going to start talking to people about the things that you're focusing on and the things that you're great at, you want to make sure that those things are also things that the organization values. So we want to help you to prioritize your time based on what is strategic and what's critical. So when I talk about strategic, what are the strategic priorities of the organization and how do you focus your time more in that space? And then what's critical, what's important, what's urgent? Then we determine, and we determine how we spend our time based on this particular model. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, wait a minute, I've already got lots of things on my really long to-do list. How am I going to do all these other things as well and make sure I'm doing the strategic things? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to stop doing some things. Jim Collins created this concept of a stop doing list, and it's just fabulous because there's 2 ways that it helps people. One is if you are working long hours, a stop doing list will help you work regular hours because there's potentially things that you're doing that are not strategic priorities. They're not that important, so you should be dumping them completely. The other way that it helps is if you're not working long hours but you're still not getting noticed for things, it could help you by getting rid of those things that are not adding huge amounts of value and doing more of the things that do. So what I hear a lot of people talk about, there's 2 things that they mentioned to me about a stop doing list. The first thing that they say to me when I ask them, what's taking all your time? What are the things that you go straight away, I'm doing this, but it's not really adding a lot of value? The first thing they say is checking emails. So they were saying, emails take so much time and I've got so many emails. So I was coaching this one lady and she was talking about her emails and how many emails that she got. And I said to her, okay, so how many times a day do you check your emails? And she said, I don't know, I'm checking it all the time. I do it at my desk. I do it on my phone. Just check it all the time. And I said, okay, well, put a number on it. Just take a stab at it. How many times a day do you check your email? And she said, oh, probably 10 to 12 times throughout the day. I said, okay, that's interesting. So tell me, how many times do you go out to your mailbox to check whether or not you've got any mail? She said, well, I check it once. I said, okay, so why do you check your mailbox once, but yet you check your email 10 to 12 times a day? There's no need for us to be doing that. If there is something critical or strategic in that mailbox that you need to know about at those kind of intervals throughout the day, someone's going to instant message you or call you or whatever, you'll find out about it. But if not, there's no need to be checking your emails that much. So the first thing I encourage my clients to do is check your emails twice a day. At most, there's no need to do it more than that. Unless, of course, there's some kind of, critical thing going on that you need to be across detail in that you need. But other than that, in the main, you should be able to check your emails a couple of times a day at most. The other thing that people talk to me about is going to meetings. I've got so many meetings and this, takes so much of my time. So what I say to them is when you go to meetings, is go to the meetings where you are going to get mutual value exchange. So go to a meeting where you are going to add value to the meeting and the other person, so the person organizing the meeting, is going to get value from you being there. And so have those conversations with people when they ask you to go to a meeting. Have those conversations first about the value that you're going to add at that meeting. So there's a little bit of a start for you on a stop doing list. Let's talk about the top couple of areas of the Impact Maximizer. So as I said before, we want to be focused on these kind of high strategic priorities. So that's why number one and number two are at the top of the box. So if there are things on your to-do list that are highly critical and highly strategic, then you should be prioritizing those things and delivering them and making sure they happen. If there's things that are highly strategic and critical, then you should be focusing on them and allocating time. Now, what I mean by that, so these things might not be really urgent, but they're important. They're strategic priorities, so they're important. So, what I mean by that is, I had a client one day that was saying to me when we were talking about, her being able to focus her time on the important things. She said to me, "Oh, Katrina, I spend so much time in meetings. I just don't get time to be focusing on these, big projects that I've got on." And I said, "Okay, so how much time do you allocate in your calendar to these projects?" And she said, "Well, I don't. I just kind of go to meetings all day, and then I do my projects either on the weekend or at night time, or I fit it in throughout the day." So what I encouraged her to do was actually allocate time in her calendar for those strategic projects so that she had good lots of thinking time to be working on those projects, just as she would allocate time for meetings. And she found that made a huge amount of difference. So then I wanted to move on to the last principle, which is around sharing your achievements. So we just talked about getting us to be focusing on the right things, so the priority things. Now, once we're focusing on the right things, then we want to be able to go, okay, so how should we be sharing our achievements with others? Now, what I will say to you is I'm just going to give you 3 quick tips on this at the moment. I do go into a lot more detail on this in the next part of the Achieving Woman program, which is the Salary Maximizer, but I don't do a huge amount here. So I'll try and give you as many tips as I can. So what you want to do here is take time each week to reflect on your achievements. So consider what have you achieved in that week? Thinking about, if we go back to that impact maximizer, so where are the things where I'm really making impact, they're really high priorities that I've achieved over this week. Then when you have the opportunity to consider that, then think, what's in it for the organization for me to do that? So what's the benefit? If I've invested my time in that area, then what's the benefit for the organization? Once you've done that, then take the opportunity to share those achievements and the benefits with either your manager or some kind of influencer so that they know that you are operating there and achieving those things. Now, you might be saying at this point in time, well, what do you mean by the benefits? And I had a coaching client that I was working with at one stage, and we were working through her promoting her brand and developing her brand profile. And we were talking about some of her achievements. And she mentioned that she had done mentioned all these projects that she'd done. And as she was talking, I just kept saying to her, okay, so what? So what's in it for the organization? What's in it for your manager? What's in it for the business? Tell me more about this. And so I helped her to reframe some of the things that she had in her personal brand profile. And they were things like, so there was one example where she said, "I've completed a review of my team's core processes and we've stripped out all of the double handling, over consulting and unnecessary tasks. So we've got less people working more effectively." So she was able to get the so what in there, which was the less people working more effectively. What I would say to you is that when you are thinking about the benefit for the organisation, they normally relate to 2 things. One is financial benefit, or the other is a productivity benefit. So when you're trying to sell your achievements to someone, you need to have some kind of financial or productivity benefit in there. Okay, so they're the 3 key principles that I wanted to share with you around talking to your strengths. Now I'd like to talk about you. So once again, I'd love you to share with me in the question box what you got out of what we just went through right now. So if you were to look at what we just talked about, what's one thing that you could take out and go, you know what, I could do something with that right now? Benefits, okay, so benefits seem to be something of value. The stop doing list, checking emails. That's always a popular one, the checking emails one. Okay, sharing achievements, yeah, without sounding boastful. So that's a really good comment there, actually, around without sounding boastful. I think what helps you to share achievements in a way that sounds commercial versus cocky is to tap it into this is what I've done and this is the benefit for the organisation. So you're taking it away from yourself and you're more so attaching it to an organisational need. And I think that's where you can come across as quite assertive and also commercially oriented doing things like that. Okay, so that someone else likes the allocation of time for big projects, not just spending time in meetings. Yep, so diarising to enable a focus on strategic processes rather than getting bogged down in business as usual. That's great. Thank you for sharing. So once again, my role as the coach is to give you a little bit of a nudge and say to you, are you happy to keep working long hours with that really endless to-do list? Or do you want to be rewarded for your efforts and focus on those things that are really going to get noticed? So I'd encourage you to use some of these tips to help you move towards that direction. So let's move on to the last part of today's webinar, which is around asking for more. So the things that I heard from coaching clients was this. First of all, that they were missing out on opportunities. They weren't necessarily being given chances, so chances for promotion or chances for stretch projects, and they could see other people getting promoted around them and they weren't. So they start to feel like they're not leveraging their talents. They're kind of sitting there with all of this potential but not necessarily using it. And so they're feeling like, their career's stalled, and worse still, they've kind of got into this career rut and, not going anywhere for a long time. So I really want to help you to get promoted if that's what you want. Alternatively, or stretch and learn, and so you can develop to get your career progressing and to ultimately reach your potential. So to do that, I just wanted to share 3 final principles with you. The first one is the potential planner. So this is a planner that I use with coaching clients. It's one of the first things that we talk about when we have a coaching engagement. Firstly, we talk about aspirations. So I ask them to think about if you're aspiring to a particular role or where you see yourself in 12 months or 3 years from now, let's think about that aspirational future and what are the types of things that you see. So it might be a leadership role, it might be a big team, it might be a more balanced lifestyle, it might be really loving what I do, it might be that I'm learning lots of new things. So articulating what are the things about that aspirational future. So if you want it to be a specific role, that's fine. But if you don't, it's really just about what does that aspirational future kind of look and feel like for you. Once we've got that, we then start to think about my best self. So if I think about me right now, what are the strengths, the skills and the knowledge and experience that I'm going to bring to the table that's going to set me up for a successful future. As I mentioned before, in the Salary Maximizer program that I do spend a lot of time developing and helping you put together your personal brand profile, and your My Best Self kind of starts the thinking towards that. And one thing I notice when I'm coaching people is quite often they go straight to what are my opportunities for development and not recognize what are the best things about us right now. And what I would say to you is if you don't recognize your strengths, it's going to be hard for other people to recognize them. So when you do take some time to do this planner, I would encourage you to really spend time thinking about the things that you're really strong at right now. Once we spend time on, so we've looked at aspirations, we've looked at my best self, then we actually say, okay, so to get from where I am right now, being my best self, what are the opportunities? What's the development that I need to be able to get me to my aspirational future? And these might be things like, oh, well, I need to actually move into a different job, or I might need a particular project to give me development. So, what are those things that are going to provide me with those stretch opportunities? I wanted to share with you an experience I had with a client of mine where we actually used this particular model. So, she had been really excited about a particular promotion that she was um, in the running for. And it ended up that she didn't get that promotion. And she was really deflated by the whole experience. So, what we did was we went back to our potential planner that we had put together. And we said, okay, let's go back to your aspirational role. Is it still the same as what it was? Are these the things that you're still aspiring to? We looked at her best self and we said, okay, so, have we got everything in the right place and have we got everything included? We went back to the stretch opportunities, and yes, that promotion was going to give her a lot of what those stretch opportunities were that she needed. But we articulated a little bit further around getting clarity on what were some of the priority opportunities for her. She then went and had a conversation with her manager around these opportunities that she needed to be focusing on to get her to her aspirational role. So she was very open and honest with him. And as a result of a restructure, there was actually another role going that ticked all the boxes on being able to give her that stretch opportunity. And as a result of that, she's now in that particular job and really, really happy and working her way towards her aspirational role. So she's not at her aspirational role yet, but this role that she's in is certainly setting her up for success in getting there. So, the last principle I wanted to share with you in this particular area is around the assertiveness planner. So, I'm just going to talk through the theory of this and how the framework works, and then I'm going to share with you an example. As I mentioned earlier in the session, I am going to share the slide pack with you today, and this is one where you could download the slide pack, print it out, and use it as a planner. So if we think about the assertiveness guide around ways to be more assertive was to practice, this is a great way to practice before you go into a negotiation with someone. So let me talk you through how the framework works. So first of all, we want to describe the situation in objective terms by saying something like, because I, discuss your feelings about the problem. I feel this. Determine one change you would like to see happen. I would like. Now, you'll probably notice that the first three sentences are all I statements. And it's important to note that assertive behavior tends to be where people are using I statements. When you start to use statements like you or them, it can come across as being quite aggressive. So when you want to be assertive, you want to use I statements. And then we finish by demonstrating what's the benefit for them if this change actually happens. So let me show you how this actually works in practice, this particular planner. So what we would do is we would go into the conversation saying something like, because I want to continue to grow and develop, I feel that I'm not challenging and stretching myself enough. I would like to be considered for this management role. I'll be able to deliver the role KPIs as well as set up the business for future growth. Okay, so there's a way that you can practice to be assertive and plan to have a frame up for a negotiation conversation. Okay, so once again, let's have a little bit of a chat about you. So we've been through three principles there. Once again, keen to hear from you. Which one do you think you could use right now that would change how you might feel about negotiating? If you just want to pop your comment in the box. Okay, so you like the planner, being able to prepare yourself for a negotiation. Yep. So someone else likes the planner. I can who likes the potential planner. Yep. Excellent. And the assertiveness planner. Yeah. Nice. So interestingly, they're both planning tools. So it sits really nicely in that area of being able to practice and reflect on. Give yourself time to be in the right headspace for a negotiation. Okay, and the other one was my best self. Yep. So taking some time to think about the great things about you, not just the areas for development. Okay, so once again, my role as the coach is to ask you the question around where you want to go from here and drawing a line in the sand. So, do you want to keep watching other people get promoted and not leveraging your talents and maybe feeling like your career is stalled? Or do you want to be in a situation where you are progressing and learning and growing in your career? So, to wrap up today's session, I'm not exactly sure why you showed up, but I know you've been quite interested and engaged, and I can see that you're getting some value out of some of the tools. So, I wanted to be able to demonstrate to you today that there is through some simple tools, you can be ambitious, you can talk about your strengths, and you can ask for more. And you've demonstrated today that you there are some pretty simple tools here that you could possibly use straight up to start using and to start becoming more of that. So you might be thinking right now, look, is this really for me? Well, what I would say to you is that very quickly you're able to pick up on those tools and say, yep, I could use that and I could use it right now and it could make a difference for me. So you could keep doing what you're doing, but you do have a choice to do things a little bit differently. And now you've got some tools that can help with that. One of the things I would say to you is that I do have, as I mentioned, I've got another opportunity where I can share with you some things that could help you further along your way. So I've got a program called the Salary Maximizer, and there's three elements to this particular program. One is to help you to be courageous. So to help you shift your mindset from having career stalling thoughts to career enabling thoughts. The next piece is building your brand. So I mentioned that we kind of take the my best self to the next level and really recognize your strengths and build a personal brand profile. And then asking for more. So thinking about how does that personal brand profile actually benefit the organization so that then you feel much more confident about your own personal brand promotion. What I would say is that the salary maximizer isn't right for everyone. It's not right for women who are not interested in changing, and it's not right for people who are looking for a magic pill because unfortunately I don't have any of those. I did build this for women who are feeling like their careers have stalled and they want to be paid more. What it will give you, it'll help you give you recognition for your hard work. It'll help you get paid well for what you do and also tap into opportunities for advancement. I am hosting this event in Sydney, so I apologise for those people on the line who are outside of Sydney. I am hosting an event in Sydney in the next couple of weeks. It'll be our last one for this calendar year, and it's happening on Thursday, the 19th of November at 6 p.m. I would encourage you to come early at 5:30 to enjoy the refreshments, but most importantly, to have an opportunity to network with some other fabulous women. And we're holding it at the establishment in the city in Sydney. Normally, I charge a price of $270 for the program. For this particular program, and because you've come along to the webinar, I'm offering it to webinar attendees and any attendees of my women's presentations to get the program for $190. So it's an $80 discount. And let me tell you, it's a good discount compared to what I would charge for 3 hours of coaching someone. So I'm really trying to make my services available to a larger group of people. After you attend the webinar today, I'm going to send you an email with some details on how to sign up, and it'll have a link to this particular registration page so that you can sign up and come along to that event that we're hosting in Sydney. If you do sign up to the event, to get you prepared for the event and to provide you some more support in progressing your career, I have just written a new book called The Thought Booster, and this book is about helping you stop those career stalling thoughts, turn them into career enabling thoughts so that you can negotiate and be promoted. So I really value your attendance this afternoon. I hope you enjoyed the negotiation technique webinar. I will be sending out a link to the slide pack so that you can download and use those materials whenever you like. For those of you who are interested in the Salary Maximizer, I would love you to stay on the line for another 10 minutes and we can have a conversation about any questions you have about the event, and we can have a bit of a conversation. For everyone else, thank you very much for attending today's session, and I do wish you all the best in progressing your career the way you want it to go. Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Okay, so for those who are still on the line, I would love to answer any of your questions. Thanks, Linda. I'd love to answer any of your questions in relation to the event. So if you can pop your questions in the question box for me, and I will answer those questions as best I can. Okay, can I invite someone else to attend instead of me? Yes, of course you can. So you are welcome to forward the email on to others. The discounted rate is only available until Monday the 9th of November, so I'm more than happy if you want to send them the promo code, and they just need to log on and purchase their tickets by close of business Monday the 9th of November, and that's close of business Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. The next question is, what's the format for the event? So we'll start at 5:30 with networking and then move into the kind of official part of the night by about 6 p.m. And the event itself will be quite interactive, so there will be an opportunity for you to develop your personal brand profile, start thinking about what does that brand mean as far as benefits to the organisation. So you'll have an opportunity to learn things from me, then actually put those things into practice. Okay, so what do you need to do beforehand? Okay, so before the event, the only thing I would definitely, there's two things. One is you need to register. Secondly is that read the book, The Thought Booster, ideally before you come. It's not a big read, so it shouldn't take you a lot of time, but it will set you up for success around the first part of the program, which is the Be Courageous. So if you look under Be Courageous there, where it talks about career stalling thoughts and change your thinking, a lot of the Thought Booster book is about that. Okay, so what's different today? There's a lot different to today. So today I've given you a little bits and pieces of what I have to offer in this particular area. I'll be going into a lot more depth on things like your best self, strengths recognition, personal brand profile, matching that brand profile to the benefits as a benefit for the organisation, and building your confidence so that you can set yourself up to start having some of those conversations. Are there any other questions at this point in time? Yes, so the deal itself, so the discounted rate is available with the promo code that is on the registration page. It is available at $190 only until close of business on Monday the 9th, and that's close of business Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. Are there any other questions at this point in time? Not by the looks of it. Well, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I really hope you got value out of it. I look forward to connecting with you or potentially your friends if you want to be sharing this detail with them, potentially them in a couple of weeks at the Salary Maximizer. Thanks, everybody.